here to make really one point, which is Indiana has very, very limited laws on gun safety. And in the case of James Wesley Howell, we utterly failed to enforce our very weak laws. We need to first start enforcing the laws that we have and then get serious come January about having some real gun legislation. There is literally no hope that Washington will do anything. The Supreme Court has made it clear that we are permitted to restrict automatic weapons, and we should be doing that. That's my entire speech. I'm happy to go into detail as to what happened, and if you want to know, I'll tell you what happened with James Wesley Howell. And we've sent you all the information day by day with citations.
Actually, what I'm interested in is more detail in what you're supposed to do in January. Do you need to add?
Well, I can start backwards, and I'm dead serious. Talking to the Indiana General Assembly and the current governor about making stricter gun laws is not a great use of our time, okay? But I'll tell you what we should do, and it's pretty easy. 80% of the American people believe that we should restrict automatic weapons, basically preclude them, get rid of military-type weapons in civilian hands, okay? We should have universal background checks, and we should restrict these large ammunition clips. That's 80%. A majority of the NRA members say that. Somehow that can't seem to get through to politicians. It got through to this politician. I think I understand this issue. All right? So that's really all it is. It's not that complicated. There may be some more deep, long-term things we can do and study, but those are the clear, obvious things with 80% support in the American public, and they should be done.
And if 80% is supported, then why is it's not just not being done here, it's not being done anywhere, it's not being done in Washington?
It's pretty simple, folks. It's a matter of money. Okay, there are gun manufacturers who are making billions of dollars by selling weapons around the world and in this country to people who don't need them for purposes that are illegal and immoral, okay? That's the group. And then they have a front group called the NRA that goes around and scares the politicians. The Republicans are afraid that they're going to lose some votes in a primary. Well, they got to choose between death and primary, okay? It's really that simple. So far, they've made the choice that winning their primary is what matters. The young gentleman from southern Indiana had an NRA license plate, okay? He was making his point. We need to make our point. They don't run this country, and they don't run this state. We've had a history in this past of letting outside organizations try to run our government, and it's not gotten us into a good position, okay? So they need to be put in their proper place. But they're not important. It's just a small group of fanatics. The real group that matters is the ordinary Republican voter, and the ordinary Republican legislators got to say, enough death. Enough death. The Second Amendment is not the Immaculate Conception. What do I mean by that? The First Amendment, free speech, I can be held for libeling somebody. I can be charged millions of dollars for libeling somebody. The Fourth Amendment, the Supreme Court said on search and seizure, I could be stopped on the street with pretty much no reason and searched. Okay, but somehow the Second Amendment has become sacred. And a man who is threatening his friends, threatening his neighbors, threatening his boyfriend, can be arrested and not have his guns forfeited despite order after order saying they'd be forfeited. His probation can't be violated even though he commits crimes in Kentucky and Indiana. Why is that? Because we don't take guns seriously here or at the enforcement level. And that needs to change. But I'm telling you, if we let this one go by, where, let's go down the list. The guy's arrested, the information is not sent to the state police. How's that? He's arrested on a gun charge, okay? There's an order from the judge that he's not to have any weapons. Nobody goes to his house to get the weapons, okay? He goes down to Kentucky, injures a cop and running away. Okay? He comes to Indiana. He's found guilty because he pleads guilty. He has an order that he's to have no weapons. Nobody goes and gets his weapons. The system is not told properly, so he's not on the do not buy list. So I don't know whether all those guns he had in California were old guns that he had months earlier that he admitted to having, or they were new guns. I don't know that because we made the whole system fall apart. All right? Every step of the way we blew it. So could we just do that? Does the NRA think we should let people violate all these laws and no matter what they do not be held on for violating their probation? I hope not. But it's really pretty simple, folks, okay? And it's time. I think the public has figured this out. And we're focused on what kind of terrorists. The ultimate solution has got to be to restrict access to these weapons, which are military-grade weapons and have no hunting or self-defense purpose. It's really pretty darn simple. Sorry for a long answer.
In the case of how you talk about the system falling apart
Completely.
At a lot of different levels, is there something legislatively that you think needs to be done there?
Yeah, there are some maze. I don't want to get into the deep details, but there's some things we permit local officials to tell the state police. We should say no. You must tell the state police about various things relating to violations. That's the first legislative thing. Second thing is, I and a lot of other people spent a lot of time and energy voting to increase the use of probation and reduce the use of prisons, and this is a billion-dollar proposition. Well, if we're going to let people out on probation and not violate them, we're undercutting the whole idea of that reform. So we need to put adequate money into the probation effort. We need to put adequate technological resources so that it's easier and effective to report a violation, okay? And then it's easier for an officer to look on the internet. This guy is saying things on the internet alone that should have had his probation violated, okay? So we need to have time for the probation officer to sit down and read these police reports and see how many times this guy threatened, see how many times he admitted he had multiple weapons, and act on that. So yeah, we need money for the probation level. We need fewer discretion, less discretion as to what's reported. We need a better reporting system, yeah. And we need to stop hamstringing our officials. For example, if I did apply for a gun permit and got it, there's a limit on somebody checking as to how many I did and how often. We box off this information. So we prevent our authorities from having information they need, then they fail to report, and then they don't have resources to do it. So, yeah, this is about money. I'd rather spend my money on protecting the public. It's just that simple. And by my money, I mean the public's money.
Mr. DeLaney, do you think the Clark County Probation Department is to blame for allowing James Wesley Howell to keep his weapons?
I don't know why they failed to act. I'm not going to criticize them directly. I don't know whether they lacked resources, whether they lacked the equipment, whether they were not as, how do we call it, alert to the threat of guns. I don't know. But, I mean, come on. We live on planet Earth. When the legislature says guns are no big threat, the only thing that matters is protecting people's access to guns, what's the message they're sending to the probation officers, the judges? The only risk that we tell them they have is if you over-enforce, we'll slap you down. We don't tell them that if you under-enforce and people are put at risk, we'll slap you down. That's not our message.
What does it say about the probation department, though, when they interview him and he lies to them and says he only has one gun? I mean, is that the system?
It was in the police report that he had more than one gun.
Right, but
I've given you all those documents.
In his initial interview, he says he
I don't
only
know
has
whether
one
the
gun.
I don't know whether the officer's too busy, the probation officer's too busy to read the reports, or he's got somebody else out in the hall that's got a bigger threat. I don't know what the problem is, and whether it's resources or attitude. I can't get down to saying what an individual judge or probation officer did wrong, but the system failed top to bottom. Okay? We disabled the state police. The state police, given what was in the file, were not in a position to do anything, okay? Or to send all the right information to the right places. Sorry.
How do you convince others here in the State House to follow?
Look, it's fundamentally, they've got to make a political decision that protecting the majority of our people is more important than protecting their minority and their majority. I'll start that over. My Republican friends have got to decide that protecting the majority of our people is more important than protecting their majority in the House, okay? They got to be willing to take a chance, and not just their majority. Individual members have got to say, I'm willing to take a risk, okay? I'm willing to take on the NRA or anybody else to protect my voters. They have to do that. And they can do that this year because guess what? The primaries are behind us. And they can talk during this election cycle, and they can campaign on that issue of protecting the public, and they can pass legislation, and they can get themselves ready for the primary. My bet is they'll win the primaries if they do the right thing. Oh, they'll take a lot of heat. Okay. But they'll win. And won't they feel better?
Seems pretty unlikely, though.
Of course it's unlikely because of the influence of outside groups such as the NRA. Because they're busy convincing the Republicans that they should be afraid of the extremists, not afraid of the public, okay? And they've succeeded in that. But, you know, I've spent my whole life dealing with extremists. I'm tired of them. And I'm not going to be run around by them, okay? And the Republicans have got to figure that out. And I think, look, I talk to a lot of Republicans in the legislature, more than other Democrats do. They're cornered by their own right wing. There are a lot more moderates in their caucus than are willing to admit they're moderates. Isn't it great? I'm in a world where the majority of the legislature is afraid to say they're moderates. Think about that. Now, this is in part the public's responsibility to bring people home. Say, look, Representative, I'm very interested in the price of ag land, and I'm really worried about the public schools, but I'm also worried about my personal physical safety. And I want you to address that. You guys can help do that. This is either going to be a topic or not a topic. Right now, in Washington, it's clear. We don't care if they kill you in your theater, your school, your gay nightclub, your military base, your church. We don't care where they murder you. We're not going to do anything about it. Okay. I think you folks can help say we need a serious discussion.
Will you propose any specific gun control steps in the next session?
Sure. The specific steps will be no large ammunition clips, no automatic military type weapons, universal gun checks. And how about this for a radical idea? The state of Indiana sells guns at the fairgrounds and doesn't insist on gun checks, okay? We are a merchant of weapons, and we don't even act to limit this. So yeah, that's a simple one. So those are the specific proposals. Now you got to remember, when you're in the minority, you got to be a little bit cagey about how you introduce these. And it's always easier when they have a pro-extremist bill, and then I try to amend it. That's the easiest way. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see any more pro-extremist bills. I think that's over, okay? All the radical little changes we've made to make it harder for the police to deal with this and put the police at risk. I think that's over. We've bottomed out. The question is, can we head back up? And I will make that effort. All right. Anybody else got any questions?